Every day in Japan, 7-Eleven sells millions of onigiri, rice bowls stuffed with different fillings, and it's easy to understand why. They're quick and tasty. Today we'll be taking it up a level with my version that packs extra flavor with marinated egg rice bowls. I'm Brendan Pang, and this is a tasty street food tour through Asia, a new series where I'll be cooking the best street eats from my upcoming cookbook. This is a book about street food, available now for pre-order. Our first stop is Japan for onigiri. My version uses a perfectly soft-boiled egg with Japanese mayo wrapped in seasoned rice. To take it up a level, I'm going to marinate those eggs in a Japanese seasoning for extra flavor. We'll break this recipe down into 4 parts: the dashi, the shoyu, the perfectly boiled egg, as well as the rice. So essentially the dashi is a Japanese stock, which we're going to bring together. The shoyu is a seasoned soy sauce, which we're going to flavor the eggs with as well as the rice. And then we'll get to the eggs and the rice as well. Now this is all the ingredients that you'll need today, but let's get started on the dashi stock. So the first step is to make the dashi stock, and this is the base of many Japanese dishes. It's packed with a lot of flavor. We're essentially using kombu, which is dried seaweed, which is going to add that nice kind of rich, earthy taste, as well as bonito flakes. And bonito flakes are essentially dried fish flakes. So it's going to give it that rich umami taste. But I'll get this started. So basically we're going to put the water on the boil. So it's quite easy to make a dashi stock. If you don't have these ingredients, you can also buy dashi powder, which is easily accessible. So to make the dashi stock, we're bringing some water up to the boil. We're going to add in our kombu, so our dried seaweed, and we're going to let that boil for about 10 minutes. It just needs to pull out the flavor from this kombu, because if you do boil it too long, it tends to become a bit too bitter. So I'm going to break that in half. We're going to put that in, straight in, bring that to the boil, and let that simmer for about 10 minutes. So whilst that's doing its thing, I have my bonito flakes here ready to add, which aren't going to be boiled, they're just going to sit in at the very end. And essentially these are going to add a nice, rich kind of umami flavor, a nice fishy, like kind of undertone to this dish. It's really tasty. And we're going to use this stock later on to cook the rice. So once the water has come up to the boil, I'm going to reduce the heat and let that simmer to gently cook that kombu for about 10 minutes. Might give it a little stir. Kombu is probably not a very familiar ingredient for many of you out there, but it's easily found at most Asian supermarkets. And bonito flakes are usually found right next to them. So if you can, it's worth the trek out to an Asian supermarket. Otherwise, you can find dashi powder, which is quite common. In the case where you don't have those, you can also use like a mushroom stock or a veggie stock. So this has been simmering for about 10 minutes. We're going to take that off the heat. And just in the last part here, we're going to add in the bonito flakes, let that sit for another 10 minutes, and then strain the liquid. And that's our dashi stock done. So it's very simple. Awesome. That looks good. Got a little bit more. Alrighty, so we're going to set that aside, let that sit for another 10 minutes. But whilst that's sitting, we're going to get onto our perfectly boiled eggs. I have another pot of water here on the boil. For a perfectly boiled egg, and what I mean by that is one where the yolk is gooey, jammy, really tasty essentially, and not cooked all the way through. We're going to bring the water up to the boil. We're going to add our eggs in. So our eggs have been sitting at room temperature because we want them to cook perfectly, and then let that sit for about 5 minutes. I'm just gently putting those in. Okay, the eggs are in, and this is a very specific way of cooking them. I know you might be thinking they're just boiled eggs, but what I'm looking for here is to cook them very gently for about 5 minutes. Once they're cooked after 5 minutes, we're going to plunge them into an ice bath to stop that cooking process, so that what we get at the end of that is a really nice and gooey center. The yolk will be nice and jammy and creamy. And once that's done, we're going to marinate that in our shoyu sauce, which we'll get to very shortly. I'm going to set my timer. All right, 5 minutes, done. And we wait. All right, 5 minutes is up. Let's pull these eggs out. Now, as soon as they're cooked, we're basically going to drop them into an ice bath or bowl of cold water, as cold as you can find, just to stop the cooking process. Now this is really important, otherwise they keep on cooking, and what you'll get is overcooked eggs where the yolk is not runny and gooey. There we go. We'll set this aside. The dashi stock is also ready, so I'm just going to put my eggs aside to cool down. So we're going to strain this, and what we're left with now is essentially that very strong flavored umami stock, which is what we're going to use to cook the rice with. All right. So my dashi stock is ready. We're going to set that aside. My eggs are also resting. And the next step is to make the shoyu, which is basically a seasoned Japanese soy sauce. Also used in a lot of different dishes such as tonkotsu, which we're going to use to marinate our eggs in. We're going to add a little bit to our cooked rice as well. So into a pot, we're going to add in a bunch of different ingredients. So I have here some Japanese soy sauce. We've got sake and mirin, just to add a complex flavor, so sweet, bitter, some different notes there to balance out the saltiness of the soy sauce. All ingredients that are available at most Asian supermarkets. We're also adding in a piece of kombu for that earthy taste. I have some spring onion, straight in, some sugar. And lastly, some minced ginger and garlic and a little bit of those bonito flakes as well. So let's mince up this garlic and ginger. Just going to peel that. Peel some ginger. Okay, I'm just going to finely grate some ginger. Grate some garlic as well. And we're going to add that straight in. And lastly, some bonito flakes. All right, we're going to turn that on and let that cook for about 5 minutes for all those flavors to come together. So it smells good, hey? It smells really good. So my shoyu is bubbling away. I'm going to reduce the heat to a simmer and let that cook for about 10 minutes to infuse all that flavor. And whilst that's cooking, what I can do is peel the eggs, because we're going to use the shoyu and a little bit of the dashi to marinate the eggs in. All right. Okay. So it is a perfectly soft-boiled egg, and we've gone into the effort of timing it, making sure it cools down, and now we have to peel it. So I am going to very carefully, with a spoon, just crack the eggshell on the outside. And this process does require you to be very delicate with the peeling. And as you peel through the egg, you might feel that it is a little soft or jiggly. That doesn't mean it's not cooked, it just means that it's soft-boiled, and that's what we're looking for. The yolk on the inside won't be cooked all the way, it won't be hard. There we go. So look, it's not perfect on the outside, but it will be perfect on the inside, I promise. I'll show you very shortly when we cut through it. Oh, there you go. Okay, the eggs are peeled. Our shoyu is ready. We're going to take that off the heat. We're going to set about a tablespoon aside for the rice, and with the remainder of that, we're going to marinate our soft-boiled eggs. Set a little bit aside. There we go. So my eggs are peeled and my shoyu tare is ready, but we're going to make sure that cools down first before we marinate our eggs, because we don't want them to cook anymore. So whilst that's cooling down, we're going to make our sushi rice, and for that we have our sushi rice here, which I have rinsed. We're going to also add to that some of the dashi for that earthy umami flavor that we made earlier on, and a little bit of that shoyu that we set aside. So the sushi rice, the rinsed sushi rice, goes straight in. We're going to add about a tablespoon or two of that shoyu sauce that we've just made. Straight in. And then some dashi stock. So my ratio is 1 cup of sushi rice to 1.5 cups of liquid. But basically, if you don't have that, or you're just going off looks, you could use the first line on your finger to measure out the rice to liquid ratio. Perfect. Okay, we'll put that on. Turn that on. That should take about 15 to 20 minutes and we can marinate our eggs. So I have a container here. And into that, we're gonna add in our stock. I'm just gonna pull out that kombu. We're gonna take this out. But the rest can stay in. It's extra flavor. The lid goes on. We're gonna put that into the fridge and let it marinate for ideally overnight or 10 hours. So the rice is cooked, and before we get to forming the onigiri, what I like to do is just fluff up the rice, just to separate the grains and let them air out a bit. Okay, our rice is ready. We're gonna set that aside just to cool slightly before we form the onigiri, the rice bowl. So we also have some Japanese mayo, Kewpie mayo, and some furikake, which basically is a Japanese seasoning made of sesame seeds, seaweed, and other little seasonings like salt and sugar. It varies depending on the region in Japan. There's some with spice in there, some with different seasonings. But if you don't have this, you could also use just sesame seeds or any other seeds you have at home. So I also have some marinated soft-boiled eggs, which I've prepared earlier. We're gonna scoop them out, carefully slice them in half to reveal the finished product. Let's take 2 of them out. You can see the color of them, they change. They're nice and brown. The shoyu, so that seasoned soy sauce that we've made, has penetrated the skin on the outside and will give it that nice flavor. Oh, look at that, perfect. Okay, we'll carefully slice these eggs in half and let me show you my shoyu eggs. Jokes, my seasoned, soft-boiled Japanese eggs. How great do they look? So perfectly cooked on the outside, the egg white has cooked through. The egg yolk is nice, jammy, soft and creamy, and the outside of the egg has that seasoned shoyu seasoning that has penetrated through the egg, which is quite tasty as well. So now it's time to form our Japanese egg onigiri, and what I love about my version is that you can actually see the inside. So onigiri is usually a rice bowl that's formed completely as it is, with the filling on the inside, and you can't really see it. We've gone into the effort to make these gorgeous, glossy, seasoned, soft-boiled eggs, so we want to see them as well on the inside. So my tip here is to line the ramekin with some cling wrap so the rice doesn't stick. Okay, there we go. We're gonna add in some of that rice that we've cooked earlier, which has cooled down now. I'm pressing that quite firmly with the back of the spoon so it holds together. And what I love about onigiri is that it is a very versatile dish, so you can make it your own. I am using a seasoned soft-boiled egg here, but in terms of fillings, you could use anything from like a tuna mayo mix to leftover cooked chicken. You could add in just a hard-boiled egg if you'd like as well. And in terms of toppings, I am going to add in some Japanese mayo shortly. You could add anything in there, sriracha, any other creamy sauce works quite well. And for the seeds at the very end, if you don't have furikake, you could use sesame seeds, black sesame seeds, any other seeds you have on hand as well. Okay, so to finish, we have our rice that's been very carefully pressed into our mold. And the next step is to scoop out some rice so the egg can sit very nicely in there. Yeah, that looks good. And for the egg to stick, I'm adding in a bit of Japanese mayo. Now the egg goes in next. Just make sure the rice is nicely stuck all around it. All right, now is the moment of truth. We're going to take the rice bowl out. I'm going to carefully peel the cling wrap off. And with the base of the onigiri, we're going to coat it with all of that furikake, which for me is extra texture and more flavor. There we go. There you go, my Japanese egg rice bowl. All right. Wow, that's really good. The rice is really well seasoned. I haven't even gotten to the egg yet. It's got all those like rich, dashi flavors, a bit of soy in there as well. A lot of texture, which I love. Yum. Oh, I mean, the rice is perfectly seasoned. It's got those dashi flavors, the shoyu, the extra texture on the outside, which I love so much. The mayonnaise and the yolk on the inside adds a bit of moisture and creaminess that just brings it all together. I love Japanese egg rice bowls. They're super tasty, quick, convenient, and the best part is that you can swap out the filling and add in something else like a tuna mayo mix to make it your own. Next week, we'll be stopping over to Hong Kong for something sweet. As a passion project, I've spent the last 2 years working on my latest street food cookbook, and I'm so excited that it's now available for pre-order. Each copy comes personally signed, so you can grab yours with the link in the description.